Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon podcast, episode 22. We got to interview Sarah Miles. You may have seen her on social media. She is a shooter, foxer and deer stalker. She likes testing kit, recently been taken on by one of the big suppliers. She works at a local gun shop and runs a range. So I won't drag on too much. We'll get into the podcast shortly. I just thought I'd do a quick news update as to what's been going on. Well, it's the 10th of December. Christmas is just around the corner. Hopefully everybody's got their shopping list sorted out of what they want for the next year. What have I been up to? Well, we are well and truly into the hinds. Obviously, we're managing our row cull as well, looking at forestry and stuff like that. The weather's been absolutely atrocious. It's been pretty much constant rain up on the hill. We've had rain, sleet and snow. But that's the joy of deer stalking. If you don't go out, you don't get anything. So it doesn't matter whether it's rain or shine. We carry on and keep doing the job. Anyway, what we'll do is we'll get started on this podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon podcast. Today we are talking with Sarah Miles. You've probably seen her on social media. She is live and in person, so we're going to start asking questions. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good, yes. Thank you very much for coming on and doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's been a bit of a trial and tribulation, obviously, with everybody being ill and stuff like that. And I think you've come down with the same cold now, so we'll apologise to people. Absolutely. So, yeah. Right. I suppose we'll crack straight into it and ask the main question. I ask every guest that comes on this: shooting background, shooting history. How did you get into it?
How do we begin? When I was younger, my dad was really into his shooting. He did a bit of gamekeeping, went picking up and beating and things like that. We had gun dogs growing up. I actually hated shooting when I was younger.
Okay. Right.
Every time he came home with a dead rabbit or something, I was like, that's disgusting, you're cruel, and we'd fall out about it. But Dad was it is what it is. He wasn't going to change what he was going to do. So the dead rabbit stayed on the doorstep.
Well, I suppose if I think back when I was a kid, I was all fluffy creatures were lovely and you always wanted to care for them and you never wanted to hurt them. Then I went out rabbiting with a guy and we did netting and stuff like that, and I was like, that's interesting, I like that, but didn't want to do the gutting. And at school I remember biology classes, it was like, I couldn't cope with that. And then it all changed.
You've got to have a strong stomach for it, which I still haven't now, actually.
I think it just comes with time. It's just one of those things, suddenly you kind of just do it and forget about it.
Yeah. But yeah, eventually, like I say, he wasn't going to change what he was going to do. I had to go with an air gun in the back garden, which wasn't the great start because I put my eye right on the scope and ended up with a black eye. So that put me off shooting.
Right. Yeah. Good.
So we didn't get off to a very good start.
Really good introduction to shooting straight away. Yeah.
And then I remember I started going out beating, and then I got really into like the gun dogs and gun dog training. So he got me out picking up. To begin with, I still wouldn't touch dead stuff. And then we progressed to dead pheasants with gloves on. Okay. If one came back pricked or anything, I'd have to radio him and be like, Dad, help. I don't know what to do. I can't do it. It's funny, isn't it, how it changes? I remember even with gloves on, afterwards I wouldn't eat my lunch because I was like, oh, my hands are disgusting. I'd had gloves on, but it was just this, I don't know, thing in me that I just didn't like it. But as time went on, I got more involved in the gun dog side of it to begin with. And I started working with a gun dog trainer, training dogs. Then I'm trying to remember what order it comes in. It all sort of comes and goes, doesn't it? I got a job at a local gun shop.
Okay. Right.
I went in and just asked if I could have a job. Took them a freshly baked chocolate cake to try and sweeten the deal, because at the time, realistically, I knew nothing about guns.
Fair enough. No, but I suppose the chocolate cake probably worked quite well.
It's the only thing I had going for me. I was like, I can provide cake. So yeah, I started working there, and it just sort of flew on from there really. Started getting into like clay shooting. Then you get invited to like your beaters days, your picking up days shooting. Um, and then started going out rifle shooting with him.
Okay.
And then it's just seemed to have gone on more and more and more from there, really. Like, it's crazy to think from not liking things to being shot to now it seems like such a huge part of my life.
I was
Two
going to say,
completely different
because
ends of the scale.
yeah, looking at your profile and the social media feeds you produce, you are out a lot. There's a
Yeah,
lot. You do a lot of stuff.
yeah,
So obviously, it, as you say, it's gone from almost nothing. I won't touch anything dead to, yeah, I'm out.
mm,
I'm shooting a lot of deer, foxes, etc., etc.
mm.
So is your partner obviously heavily into his shooting as well? Is he in?
Yeah. So I'm really lucky that the person I'm with loves it as well. So it's we joke and say, should we have date night tonight? Should we go foxing?
But it's absolutely fantastic because a lot of people, a lot of shooters, it's either it's either their hobby
Mhm.
or their partner or the person they live with doesn't actually enjoy it. So
Yeah,
it's kind of a tricky situation because actually if you've got somebody that you can go out and enjoy it with at the same time, you've always
yeah.
got somebody that can hold the lamp. However, saying that, you really don't use a lamp anymore because I've noticed that most of your kit's either night vision or thermal and stuff like that.
I was only saying to someone the other day, I said, what happened to the good old days of your lamp, where you just went out with your big lamp and your switch on the front and just scanned around the foot? It seems like I'm not old, but do you know, even for me, it seems so long ago that that happened.
Yeah, well, I remember we joke about it because we used to go rabbiting on an old airfield, and I got some army webbing, and we used to carry spare batteries because you'd be out all night, so you'd have like 3 or 4 batteries tucked around your webbing kit. You'd have
Yeah,
your rifle, something to eat, and it would be like, how much weight am I carrying? And now you can go out with just like a tiny torch or a battery pack, and that's it, and it's
yeah.
completely different. There's an old boy that used to live down where is he, Taunton direction, and he used to try and go out lamping. I remember the story now. He used to try and go out lamping by himself. So what he did was he got a crash helmet, screwed the lamp into the top of it. But every time he put his head down to the rifle, the light would shine 45 degrees into the air. So Steve's method of self-lamping at that point never really worked. He always needed somebody with him.
I wonder if I know him actually.
Uh, you're down that way. So nickname Gizzy.
Mm,
He's a well old boy. Loves Araldite and glues everything together.
oh, okay, maybe not.
I've got some scopes and they've got Araldite on them, but there you go, because I got them
as
off
long,
Steve.
as long as it works, that's all that matters.
That's it. Yeah, pretty much. You probably do know him. He's legendary down that way. The stories and the things we used to get. It was
Mm.
yeah, it was always funny. So you obviously you work in the gun shop, but we've seen, I think everybody knows will have seen that follows you on social media. You've obviously been picked up by is it Highland Outdoors now?
Yeah, and again, luckily, fortunately, that was through work really. So we work quite closely with them and other suppliers, you know, ordering stuff in for the shop and the range. And then just got chatting to the reps one day, and he said, "Oh, how do you feel about being an ambassador?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, why not?" You get lots of these conversations along the way,
Yeah.
and I find you sort of take them with a pinch of salt because they don't always come off. So I didn't really get too excited about it. I just said, "Yeah, let me know." Um, Thought nothing more of it, and then I had an email, and he's like, "It's going ahead." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like I just thought it was one of those passing conversations. Um, so yeah, had a message from the boss of Highlands, said that they'd love to work with me, and it's kind of just gone from there really. So been doing that, must be, I mean, it's quite new, so 3 months maybe.
I was going to say it yeah, but obviously let's try and kill the myths and all the rest of it of the ambassadorship and things like that, because there's loads of people out there just think it's people that just don't do any shooting really and all the rest of it. You obviously are the real deal. You're out, you are shooting, you
Mm.
do a lot of shooting, and before that you were still out shooting. So actually having them on board, you are actually able to test kit and do things.
Yeah, yeah, you've got to be. I guess there's companies that aren't maybe the same, but with them, you know, they very much wanted people that are out doing it on a daily, weekly basis. testing the kit, not just posting a picture of it saying, look at this pretty gun.
Well, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think that's
you've got to
one of
use
the
it.
things
Yeah.
you do see. Unfortunately, social media has this nasty habit of producing a lot of perfect photos with somebody holding a rifle or a pair of binoculars or something like that, and it's like, have they really actually been out shooting, or
Mm.
are they just doing that for the photo shoot, and they really don't have a clue what's going on?
Yeah, and I was honest with them from the start. I said to them, the ambassador thing is great. There's some great perks to it. I love doing it. But at the end of the day, you're going out with a job to do.
Yeah,
So you need the right kit to do it. And I said to them from day one, I'll try anything you send me, but if it's rubbish or if it doesn't work for me, I will say, because I can't be going out with kit that doesn't work, going, oh, there's a fox over there, but oh, the scope's died, or the gun, something doesn't work. At the end of the day, you're not doing it for fun. In a way, you've got a job to do and a reason behind doing it.
yeah, because you started off, I think, with an ATN scope,
Yes.
and I think I
Yeah,
remember
so
talking to you about that for a
that
while
was
about.
through Lee Perryman, actually got me that
Okay,
gig. I think I didn't really know Lee at the time, and I remembered he forwarded me something from ATN, and I was a bit like, was this a scam? I don't really know. And he was like, you should apply, and I was like, is this legit? And so I just, again, one of those things, I thought, oh, I'll apply and just see what happens. So that's where I started, was with ATN, and it was brilliant. The scope they sent me was fantastic. It did what I needed it to do. But then I got approached by Highland, and yeah, I was gutted to leave ATN, and I got on really well with the guys, but they were really understanding. Getting the gig with Highland had more opportunities. It wasn't just scopes, it's guns, clothing, bipods, moderate, it's the whole lot.
it's the whole shooting package at the end of the day. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I think you're now running a thermal setup on stuff.
Yeah, so on my 6.5 Creedmoor that they sent me, I've got just a Maven normal day scope, and then on the 223 I've got the Infrared TL35, and I'd actually never used a thermal scope until then, because the ATN was a day and night scope,
That's right. Yeah, yeah. 'Cause
so it was all new to me when I got it.
I'm running the same infrared scope, the 35.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. We've only just had the legislation change up here that actually, now that certain people, if you hold a night license and all the rest of it, we can actually now move over to thermal. So it does make a big difference. But for that, it was my foxing rifle at the end of the day.
It's funny how you say that about just quickly about the license. It's funny, people think you know everything, but you don't. Do you know what I mean? You'll probably find you still learn stuff all the time. Somebody messaged me the other day and said, oh, I really want one, but I'm in Ireland, so I can't have one. And I said, well, why can't you have a thermal? He said, because we need a license for it. I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Something I never even knew that. I said, what do you mean you need a license for it? You just go to a shop and buy one.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, different parts of the world have different licenses. So yeah, I was just explaining there to anybody that doesn't know. Obviously, we can use thermal scopes for vermin control. That's no problem
Mhm.
at all. But deer management, you weren't, up until 20 at the end of October, you
Mhm.
weren't allowed to actually go out with a digital optic on your rifle for shooting
Mhm.
deer. So even a day and night scope like your ATN was technically against the law, because it could, in what it basically was, you could actually get to the hour past of night, of sort of daylight hour,
Yeah.
and technically switch on, so you were still shooting past the cutoff time. So,
Mhm.
but the law has now changed, legislation's changed, that actually now allows us to use a image intensifying scope, so be it a day and night scope or a thermal scope, if you hold a night license, which means you have to be on the fit and competent persons register, then you can actually use these pieces of kit. So it should be
Yeah.
a bit of a game changer. But how do you
Mm.
find take it? Because obviously you've taken a few deer with your thermal. How do you find it?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, to begin with, it's very weird when you haven't used one before. It's a little bit, you're so used to looking through this crystal clear scope where you can, see every part of the deer, every grain of hair, and then you look at this and you're like, oh, it takes some getting used to. But actually it's fantastic. And again, it goes back to the old lamping days or the old deer stalking days where you just had your rifle and your ammo and that was it. And, now a lot of people, you use spotters as you're walking through the woodland. You've got that upper hand, haven't you? Because you can sort of spot them before you get there.
Yeah.
And it's mad, isn't it? You think back in it, we never had this back in the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. It's like if I'm out stalking, the spotter stays in the car. I don't take it. I just take the binos and the rifle.
Yeah.
If I'm out managing woodland, then you take the spotter because it
Yeah.
kind of gives you a heads up as to what's going on, what's in the trees, what's about to step out.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. But it's again, as you see more and more professional guides, I've seen it up here, actually now relying on spotters and thermal optics rather than the binos, which is it's almost like a dilution of skills at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think as we move forward, that's all people are ever going to know. It's like people that grew up with lamping, they will have never experienced that. So going forward, they'll only know using a spotter or a thermal scope. They won't know any different. That will just be normal to them.
Yeah, I agree with you because it's always surprised me when you're standing there with a guest and you're like, there's a deer over there, and they're like, what? It's like, yeah, just over there. You can just see the white of its ass. No, I can't see anything. Look over by that tree stump. How did you see that? It's just like, well, I'm so used to it. It's an acquired skill
My
nowadays. Though you just
partner's like that. He's like, over there, 3 fields. And I'm like, sorry. He's like, left of the tree. And I'm like, I can just see a tree. There's nothing there. And then I pick the spotter up. I'm like, oh, yes. How the hell did you see that?
Yeah, but that's it, and the spotter's there. It's just I suppose it's one of those things that, as you say, people will just become so used to. They get their spotter out, they identify something. The only disadvantage to it is, do you think there'll be? It's that understanding what you're actually seeing through the scope or the spotter.
Yeah, you've got to be. I mean, even now, I don't know if you find it, but I'll pick up the spotter when we're out foxing and I'll be like, oh, there's a fox. And then you look and you actually, no, that's not a fox. It isn't with the best spotter in the world, you still have to be clued up and know what you're looking at. And it's not just what you're looking at, it's the way they move, the way they're acting identifies them as well.
Yeah.
So you can be easily tricked into thinking it's one thing when actually it's not. So you still need to have that knowledge about you and not rely on it because you could get it wrong.
Yeah, the tech obviously I use a really old Pulsar spotter, and it's a grainy old picture, and it's not like these new stuff where you can actually see the grass and everything's much clearer. But again, it's one of those things that you can find something, but then you have to identify it, work out what it is, make sure that it's not standing behind a bush or a hedge,
Yeah.
not standing in a stubble park where they've cut the rake when it's still so high that actually it looks like it's through a forest. But in your
Yeah.
thermal, it's as crystal clear as day,
It's
and it's
right in
there.
front of you. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing you got to remember is most of these spotters are like 10 times magnification. So, oh, it's right there. It's 200 yards away, and
Then
it's
you look
not.
through your scope and you're like, Jesus, that's quite a long way away, actually.
Well, that's the thing, and I suppose as tech moves on, the new scopes and all the rest of it, especially the one you're running, it's great image quality, and
Yeah.
it's so totally different compared to like the old spotters and all the rest of it. So it is a nice crystal clear image. You've got the different palettes you can work through. So it's certainly come on, and I think there's a whole bunch of new scopes coming out now, which well you'll probably see them before anybody else that are totally different again.
Yeah, and I know it's amazing, and it's keeping. You can't keep up with the technology. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. There's so many new products coming out all the time. It's mad, really. But I think you've just got to find what suits you. What I like, you might not like. The guns I feel comfortable with, you might not, and that's fine. When people buy guns in the gun shop, they say, "Well, what's the best gun?" And I said, "Well, for you, it could be a £50 gun, or it could be a £1,000 gun. It's not to do with the price tag. It's on what fits you. You get on with. You feel comfortable. There's no
Yeah.
I can't say it is this one. It's what you get on with.
I think that's you've hit the nail on the head there. Everybody asks you what's the best caliber, what should I buy, and you look at the like the forums and all the rest of it, and you are what is it? You ask one question, like let's
Yeah.
say what's the best caliber, you'll probably get 35 different answers telling you that you need a 308, you need a 6.5 Creedmoor, you need this, you need that. And
Mm,
actually, as I've always said to somebody, is go out, shoot a few with different people and see what
yeah.
you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to find, it's the same with shotguns. You could pick up a cheap old 50 quid secondhand single barrel out of a shop and shoot really blooming well with it. I've tried, I've got nothing against Berettas, but I can't shoot with a Beretta. I don't know why. Me and Berettas don't get on.
So that means
So,
you shoot a Browning.
yes. How
I
did you
think,
guess?
yeah, it's either you shoot a Beretta or a Browning. That's
Mm.
the story.
But it's just finding and it's funny, like you say about the caliber, up until I got the 6.5 from Highland, my highest caliber was 243. And people always said to me, why don't you get a bigger one? I said, because I don't need one. I've only got roe deer around here, so I'm shooting roe or foxes. Why do I need to go and buy a 308 or more expensive rounds, or when the gun I've got does everything I need it to do?
Yeah, I think that was like the go-to for most police forces, wasn't it? That was
Mm,
you applied for a firearms license, and literally it was have a 22 LR and have a 243, and that's pretty much covered everybody. It covered them for foxes, it covered them for most of the deer species you're going to find in the UK. All right,
yeah,
I probably wouldn't want you to come up to Scotland with a 243, but I know
no,
loads of guys up here that have shot hundreds of deer with a 243.
yeah,
But again, it's one of those things. It's horses for courses. Everybody will have their say. There's a lot more calibers of wildcat calibers that have turned up on the market and stuff like that. And I think
mm.
that the current buzzword is the 6.5 Creedmoor, isn't it? Really, you probably
But then some people say to me, oh, you've got a Creedmoor, and I'm like, oh really? it
it
works
it did
fine for me.
it didn't get very good press when it was first released, did it? It kind of
Yeah,
ended up all over the place as, oh, you don't want a Creedmoor. Only that this type of person has a Creedmoor. It's like
yeah,
if it does the job, it does the job at the end of the day.
yeah. Just I think find what suits you, and if it suits you, that's all that matters. Don't worry about what other people say.
Pretty much. Well, but that's kind of, I think people get caught up in everything, don't they? And they kind of get a bit worried about it's like keeping up with the Joneses. It's the caliber trend and all the rest of it. Oh, I've bought this rifle. It shoots really well, but I want to swap and buy the next rifle. It's like, well, why don't you just stick with what you know and become a good shot with it?
Yeah, I'm very much. I don't like change. If it works for me, I'll just stick to it. Do you know what I mean? I've got no need to change, to just keep what's working for you. And yeah.
So let's move this on. So obviously, you're into your stalking. Have you shot the UK 6, or is that something that's still to be done?
No, still to be done. So I still need to shoot a red, a sika, and a fallow. I went out a few weekends ago to try and get my first sika. Wasn't
Right.
successful, unfortunately. But still, like I always say, every stalk, it's not about pulling the trigger. It's
No.
about the journey, the stalk, the people you meet. And it was just a complete eye opener. I'm used to roe deer, and sika are nothing like roe deer.
No, 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 not at all. And it's funny because the last guest was Richie of Richie Nank's Knives, and he's just come back from Ireland,
Mhm.
which is obviously where my deer stalking started, really chasing sika deer around County Wicklow, and he
Literally chasing.
yeah, pretty much it was like cowboy style.
Mm,
Um, they're a totally different animal altogether. They are.
mm.
Yeah, you really learn to stalk a sika. If you can stalk sika deer, you can stalk anything else. Absolutely.
I'm used to sort of, just stroll. If you've got the wind right, you can pretty much with a roe deer just carry on walking along, talking, as you are crunching the twigs. And if the wind's in your favour, then it's fine. But when I went out on the sika, he was like, no, 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 you need to be quiet. I was like, all right. And it's just they're there and then they're gone. It's a whole different ball game. And I was like, this is really difficult.
Yeah, sika deer. The best bit of advice was I've ever given to somebody, and people gave to me, was stalk a little and look a lot. So every 10 paces, binos up, start looking, because they are probably hiding 15 yards in the trees to your side, to the side of you.
Yeah.
And it's almost, we were just said it the other day and I'll say it again. It's like that scene in Jurassic Park. You're looking at the velociraptors ahead of you, but there's
Yeah,
one to the left of you that's looking
yeah,
straight at the trees at you. And with thermal tech, you put that up and you see them straight away. But when you didn't have it and it was binary, you couldn't see them. They are like the ghosts of the forest.
yeah.
And
It's
yeah,
just
they
even up in the high seat. I mean, we'll sit in a high seat round here, and again, you can sort of talk and carry on, and nothing really pays attention to you. But I think I just moved my barrel slightly, and this seeker just looked up at me, and I was like, "Oh, really? You've noticed me up here, like covered in camo?" But they are just so quick and so switched on.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm going to go back out again and try again. But there's no rush. Do you know what I mean? Like it'll all happen when it happens. Hopefully I'll get a red and a fallow at some point, but I'm not rushing. Some people rush out to complete it all in a certain time. As and when I do it, I'll do it.
Well, if I get my Chinese water deer this year, it's only taken me what 15 years to do them all. So you got plenty of time. It's, as I
Yeah,
say, it's not a rush. It's one of those things. It just happens when it happens at the end of the day. I know some people like to do the whole lot as quick as possible and they say they've done them, but I think it's opportunities that come up, and it's that whole thing. It's the whole experience. It's making the memories at the end of the day. I think that's the most important part.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I always say some of the best stalks I haven't even pulled the trigger. You know.
Yes. Yeah. It's been an eye opener actually being out on the hill guiding people and getting guys into hinds, and we kind of got them in and got him in I think about 5 or 6 times. Well, he missed a couple of times, and the last stalk it was like we were there, and I said to him, well, that's it, they've gone. He's like, oh, it's not about pulling the trigger, it's actually the stalk. All right, yeah, we had crawled 200 meters down the side of the hill, but for him, as far as he was concerned, he's like, it was amazing, it was brilliant. I was like, but we didn't get it. He's like,
You're like, we're soaking wet,
we're so
freezing
yeah.
cold, but it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. But for them, it was just a day out on the hill, and that's part of it. So as I say, I think a lot of people pulling the trigger is a very clinical 2 second incident that anybody realistically you can put them behind a rifle, put them on the target, and it's the same principle. If they can get the deer out their head and squeeze the trigger, happy days.
Exactly. Yeah,
Because there's a rifle range, isn't there, at your gun
yeah.
shop?
So originally I started in the gun shop because it was just a gun shop, and then 4 years ago they built a 100-meter underground full bore range.
Oh, okay.
And then on the side we've got like a 90-meter air rifle range. So I work solely in there now. So very handy. Like today, we're going away shooting the weekend. So I was like, I'll just check my guns on target still, just make sure everything's okay. So on my lunch break, I just nip in, take a few shots, and job done.
I was going to say there aren't that many underground ranges in the UK, are there? Because the only one I've ever been to was up at in Derbyshire, Carlton Moor, which is a tunnel range, and they're a bit of a weird range. Is yours a tunnel or is it actually a more substantial range?
So ours, I would say, not just because I work there, is the best shooting range in UK because it's got the state of the art system. So we've got electronic target systems which came over
Okay,
from America. So I think there are a few ranges about, but a lot of them you have to all stop shooting, make safe, go down, look at your target, and I think we could do that out in a field. But with this one, you all sit at your benches. Nobody has to go over the shooting line, and you just hit your button to what distance. You can change your lights, you can change your colors,
you're right.
you can set up scenarios on it so that the target goes out and only turns for so many seconds before it moves out to another distance.
Okay.
um, so yeah, it is pretty cool, and I'm very lucky to work there and be able to use it. It's
So
very
that
popular.
I was going to say, is that range open to? Do you get a lot of guys that come in and want to develop loads, or are
Yeah,
they into stalking, or they're competitive shooters and things like that come in there?
I would say so we have a lot of members. We've got nearly 700 members.
Wow. Okay.
I'd say most of those members are really into like tactical shooting, long range shooting, obsessed with semi-autos type of
Right.
shooting. But we do get the stalkers in. A lot of them will just be, so we're open to people that aren't members. They can come in, pay a fee, have it for an hour, just test zero, test some loads. So yeah, we've got the completely different ends of the spectrum in shooters. We've got people that have never held a gun before. We do training and things like that, so never touched a gun, to really experienced people that just want to use it because it's convenient. it's in the dry. We haven't got to lie
Well,
out in the
yeah,
field.
I suppose the thing about exactly a tunnel range, the beauty, or an underground range, the beauty of it is you have no weird side effects of wind or anything like that. So when you want to take a shot and make sure that your rifle's on zero, you can take that shot and you're not having to worry about the 100-mile-an-hour crosswind that gives you 18 inches of wind drift or something like that.
Yeah. So
I
if it
joke
goes
about
wrong, it's generally your fault because there's nothing else getting in the way.
exactly. It's kind of the ideal thing, and this is something we've learned heavily this year on the hill. It's just been mental with those some of the stories and the wind. It's I've never seen a 308 bullet drift and rise over 80, but we were 250 yards and it drifted 18 inches.
And I complain about the weather down here.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, but of course, when you're shooting position, it was completely calm. But it's
Yeah.
like pockets of wind across the distance, and so yeah, it's been a big learning curve. And how do you tell a guest next to you? I've had like Strelock up on my phone going, right, you need to aim here on my scope, and they're like, I don't trust you. I'm like, trust me, just shoot there. And they
Yeah.
do it and they get a deer, and it's just like, but it's not on the crosshairs, it's not in the dot. I'm like, don't worry about
Yeah.
the dot, there's wind, aim here.
But that takes years of experience. Do you know what I mean? It's taken you a long time to get to that point and
Oh
learn
yeah,
that,
but
it doesn't just,
it exactly it is. And it's just one of those things, but it goes down to fundamentals. I think that's we've spoken about it before. People have spoken about it before. It's all the training, but your range offers training, so you can actually get a novice come in there and be
mm,
guided through. I think in the old days, you wanted to get a firearm, you got a firearm, and you hoped that your mate was going to take you out and take you
yeah.
shooting, and he was going to teach you what he'd kind of learned from somebody else, and that was it. But at least now you can use technology to actually help educate these people and get better shooters in some way.
And do it in a safe environment.
Yeah, no, which is key.
You're in a range, the guns are all pointing down the end. Do you know what I mean? You're not in the middle of a field. Is it a safe shot? Is it not? Is it going to get, you're in a complete controlled environment with experienced people around you. So I think it is a good thing. It doesn't hurt, to have training and lessons. It's only a good thing.
Well, it's obviously working. If you've got 700 members in there, it's
Yeah.
and footfall as well. It obviously means that people are going there because of that reason, and a lot of clubs are struggling because they're losing ranges, and military ranges are a nightmare to get onto at the moment and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's obviously working well.
Yeah, it does well. It keeps me busy. There's plenty of paperwork to do. I've actually been painting for the last 2 days, believe it or not. People say, "What's your job?" And I'm like, "Well, paperwork, phones." But the last 2 days, I've been painting the shop, so bit of everything,
Fair
really.
enough. So let's carry on. So you've got an ibex on the back wall behind you, I see. And the
Not
listeners won't see
me.
it. It's not yours, is it? No.
No, so that's my partner. He shot that. There's quite a few actually. There's a lot more over
Okay.
there, and then we've got. So this wall is the nobody can see. They're like, "What are they looking at?" So this
So
wall here
so
is
we're
the
just
Roebuck wall.
right. So are they
Um,
all your Roebucks or
Yeah, between me and my partner, that's our conjoined Roebuck wall that we're sharing at the moment.
fantastic?
But we're
So
running
just
out
for
of
the
room in the house for
people
taxidermy.
listening, we had a quick look round the room. There's obviously a really nice ibex on the wall behind Sarah, and then she's got over the fireplace a whole load of Roebuck skulls that they've obviously trophies that they've shot over the last couple of years. Or
Yeah, that's probably the last 2 seasons. There's more, but we're just running out of room. We live in a bungalow and there's just not enough. My partner shot a red and he had that back from taxidermy, which people will have seen the hilarious video on my Instagram. I don't know if you saw it, of me
yeah,
trying to get it in the house. That's gone out in the office actually because there's just not a wall that it will fit on without it being at like child height where they can play with it and pull it off the wall.
yeah, we struggle with that. Obviously, we live in an old house in Aberdeenshire. My skull collection has to stay in sort of a bit of a weird alcove that's high up out the way, but my reds are too big.
Yeah.
So at the moment, they've actually managed to make it onto the bedroom wall because that's
Do you
the
know
only
what?
only
People
room
think
that's
that's
big
weird, but
enough.
I'm dying to have one in the bedroom. I wanted the red in there, but I put it about and I was like, it's not gonna fit. I was
No,
really
it's when you, it's
gutted.
when it's when you wake up and its nose is right there by your head kind of thing. The problem with
My
modern
friends say to
houses
me,
that
"You're so weird. Why would you want that in your bedroom?" I'm like, "It's amazing. Why wouldn't you?"
Exactly. It's something that you went and did. It's that experience. You look at it and you remember it. It's that's what it all boils down to.
They've all got a story behind them.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and that's the problem. I think I'm getting to that point where I really should start thinning them down, because it's like they've all got a story, but how many stories do I actually need?
Yeah.
I think my wife would be much happier if there weren't so many on the walls. It's always a talking point when guests walk through and they kind of look up in this alcove and it's
She's
like,
like, oh,
uh,
here we go
there's
again.
there's a lot of death up there. But it's like, but we had that one for dinner and we've eaten that one and we've eaten that one. So at least everything's gone through our freezer as well. That's the main thing.
Exactly, that's the main thing.
So moving forward, are there any interesting bits of kit that you've recently got that you're going to be talking about or showing to people at any point, or you can't talk about?
No, so I think I pretty much showed and tested everything that I've got at the minute. So I got the 223 Hauer, the 6.5 cushions and arms, and then I got
Yep.
the thermal scope and the Maven scope, some Maven binos. So I've pretty much been open and told everyone about what I'm using, and so far I haven't, touch wood, been able to fault anything, and that's honest. Do you know what I mean? I don't just say to people, buy this, it's the best thing. I will be honest and say, don't touch that, it's rubbish, or it just didn't work for me. But yeah, everything that I'm using at the minute seems to be going really well. It's working for me for what I'm doing.
So are those obviously those items you're testing and showing for Highland Outdoors, but is that sort of the type of things that then the shop will take on and stock?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So they stock, the stock's sort of changing a little bit where I work. We still do the stalking and the hunting stuff, but because of the range, our clients have changed a lot.
Okay.
So we're now getting, like I said to you, a lot of those people that want the semi-auto rifles, the tactical shooting and things like that. So it's kind of stocking a bit of both now, whereas before we were all shotguns and just hunting rifles. It's now stocking. We've got a lot of air rifles. We've got, like I say, a lot of semi-auto. I mean, the semi-autos are so popular. I mean, and it's like I said, you each to their own. Everyone's got their own niche. To me, they go, oh my god, look at this semi-auto, isn't it amazing? I'm like, meh, it's
D-
not
d-
for me.
Does it shoot rabbits? Yeah. Is it a wooden stock? Yeah, that'll do. But I suppose, yeah, that we see it in our club. You've obviously got guys that go out and they've got their fully tactical setup 2-2, and you're just like, yeah, but I can do what you're doing with my old Bruno. It's an 8 shot. I might have to change the magazine a few times, but hey,
Yeah,
it just does exactly what it says on the
I
tin.
quite like just basic. You get all these fancy different stocks and things, and people say, "What do you think?" And I'm like, I don't really like it. I just like your bog standard normal stock. As long as it does the job, that's all I need it to do.
So big question then: wooden stock or synthetic stock?
Synthetic.
You're a synthetic stock type of person.
Yeah,
Is
but
it?
again, I think that might be just again. I think a lot of what you're into is how you're brought up, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like I was only talking to someone about it the other day, and I said, well, kids don't know about eating pheasants and partridge and venison because they don't have it available to them. So you grow up, you know, in this passage of that's all you know. And I guess it's the same, dad always had synthetic stocks. So I
right.
guess that's just what I've got used to. So yeah, that's all I don't think I've ever had a wooden stock on a rifle, I don't think.
Well, there's something about it. I think if you're going to have a traditional stalking rifle, I know there'll be lots
Yeah.
of people now going, no, no, you've got to have synthetic. But I've always had a wooden stock. Okay, it takes a bit more care on the hill. When it gets soaked, you've got to
Mm.
dry it carefully. But yeah, it's just been one of those things.
I'm not against them. I've seen some and I'm like, oh, that looks amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, I wouldn't be against one. I'd give it a go. It's just what you're used to, isn't it?
But the synthetic stock, as you say, it's so easy. It's so you can knock it, scratch it, and all the rest of it. My mine looks abused most of the time. Like you've banged it or you dented it on a rock, and
Yeah.
the wood takes that dent, and it shows it. Well, at the end of the day, I suppose it's one of those things you can go, well, I remember where I did that dent, but a
Tells a
synthetic
story.
it tells a story. But yeah, when you've been rained on for 3 days, I'd probably much rather have taken out the 308, the synthetic stock on the 308 rather than my Tika. That's yeah, it starts to like look like a drain pipe at the end of the day, and everything's
It's a
soaking wet.
tool though, and I think that's what I'd struggle with. I'm quite OCD. I think if I got a nick in my stock, I'd be really bothered by it. But it is a tool for a job at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. There are different shooters out there. There are some that everything has to be perfect and pristine,
Mm.
whereas obviously, yeah, mine get danged, dented, scratched. You should see my moderator banging off the side of the going up in the Argo, and it just sits behind me, and you just hear ka-dung, 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 and you're just like, oh, it's got more chips and dents out of it, but hey,
Mm.
that's what it's there to do, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. It's your tool. It's no different than a builder and his tools, is it? Those are your tools that you use every single day. You don't just go out with your fancy gun once or twice a year to show it off. It's your tools for your job.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the key. But as I say, everybody, each to their own, they all have their how they look after their kit and want to do what they want with it. So you were talking about you've still got your red and fallow to shoot.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in species other than deer that you're interested in going after?
Uh, I wouldn't mind maybe doing a wild boar,
Right.
but I think from a high seat. I've
Yeah.
seen too many YouTube videos of it going wrong when people are on the ground.
Yeah, but that's only if you have like a driven boar, and I'm pretty sure we don't do a lot of driven boar in this country, so you should be all
Yeah,
right,
no,
unless you're
I
going to
couldn't do
Sweden
that.
or something.
Yeah, I couldn't do
No,
that. I think the panic would set in and I'd be like, oh, the safety's on. um, but no, there's nothing. Deer, I quite, I love the roebuck stalking. Um, if I get opportunities to go abroad and shoot other things, I will. But at the minute, there's nothing that I'm like, oh, I've gotta do that. It's just, I take the opportunities as and when they come. It's great to be invited to places to do things, but I'm quite happy in a way, just sort of doing what I'm doing in my little comfort zone.
and that's all it boils down to. Are you going to be attending any of the shows this year?
Yeah, definitely. I was having a little look the other day actually. So British Shooting Show.
Right.
I'll be going to. I don't know if I'll be working any of them. I haven't actually had chats to High End about, because sometimes they get the ambassadors and that on the stall. So I don't know from that front, but I'll definitely be going to the British Shooting Show, the Stalking Show, the Game Fair. We were in talks, but I think next year, because I've left it a bit last minute now, but I'd like to take my partner to the IWA in Germany.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I went there years and years ago with work, and I'd love to do the SHOT Show in Las Vegas again, just one of those experience it type of things.
It's supposed to be that is the like the pinnacle of shooting shows, isn't it? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, everyone that's anyone, and obviously a lot of American gun manufacturers
Mm.
and outfitters go there. And yeah, I think it's some stupid size. I thought IWA was big, but the SHOT Show just takes up some huge amount of
Yeah.
space.
I tried, we did the I because I went with work for the IWA, and we had to sort of get round it in like 2 days, and I was exhausted. It's one of those things you can't believe it until you see it. And I imagine it's going to be the same with the SHOT Show. That's why I said I'd love to do it once just to experience it,
Yeah,
and just see it.
it's a tricky one to get to because obviously the IWA, if anybody that's listening, is not just open to the public. You have to either be within the shooting industry, either an exhibitor
Mm.
or a seller or of some, how would
Retail,
you put it,
yeah.
retail outlet type of thing to be able to go there, because basically it's looking at 2 years in advance of what kit's going to be coming out on the market and
Yeah.
sales, etc., etc. So it's where all the big deals go down. But it's just,
Mm.
yeah, 3 or 4 massive halls in Germany,
It's just,
Nuremberg direction. Yeah, and
yeah,
I was
it's
literally
huge.
in Germany the week before, doing something else, and I was like, I could have just nipped up to and had to get back because of other
Oh.
things. But it was like, next time if I plan to go to Germany, I will try and get to the IWA and
I
get
think
around it
it's
and see
nice
what's
to
going on.
experience them all. They've all got different things about them. I really like the stalking show, obviously, because I'm really into the stalking. That's a really good show for me. I love going there, and
Well, it'll be really interesting this year because obviously this year the stalking show will be 3.
yeah.
I've believe it's going to be bigger again. So obviously the first year was very small. It got
Mhm.
bigger. It got the balcony last year, and I think he's got another hall planned for this year. So it's actually
This
going to
year.
be sort of three halls. And again,
Mm.
it's such a nice place because it is just like-minded people, and you know when you get
Yeah.
there, everybody's there for the same reason. And it's kind of a big. Well, I trek down, and it's what 500 miles, so it's a fair old trek to get
Yeah.
down there. But it's a way to catch up with people that you haven't seen for 12 months, and it's one of those shows that yeah, there's always something of interest and something different to see.
Mm. That's the only trouble is catching up with when we went to the game fair this year. I said to my partner, I said, we're going to have to do 2 days next year because we've literally spent an entire day just talking to people. We've missed 3/4 of the show. I said, so next year we need to have a day catching up with people and a day actually looking around at stuff and
Well,
watching some of
I
the things
yeah,
in the arenas.
I worked Scoon this year helping a friend on his shop out, and I think the only aisle I saw was Gunmaker's Row, and that was walking backwards and forwards to get in the car to go back to the hotel at night. I was like, that's the
Yeah.
first time I've never actually walked around the showground, and when I did quickly walk around the showground, everything was closing up. So it is.
Yeah. So
It's
you're like, oh, there's something. Oh, that's it. Yeah. It's hard work working at a show as well. It's tiring.
yeah, it
It's a
is.
long, long day.
It's long days, but it's always good because you get to see people, you get to talk to people, and hopefully pass a bit of knowledge and experience on. But yeah, as you say, it's one of those things. It's hard work walking around the show, but actually working and talking to people constantly. It's like working
Mm.
in a shop, but working in a shop on steroids. It's just constant people coming in
You get
wanting to
home
talk
and
to
you're
you.
like, I just don't want to talk to anyone now. Just nobody talk to me.
Yeah, to the bar, please. I'll have a pint, and by that time you
Yeah.
sit down in the chair and you're ready to fall asleep. But
Yeah.
So we've covered how you got started in shooting. We've gone through you doing your bits for obviously your ambassadorship. Is there anything exciting in the pipeline for Sarah Mills shooting on your social feeds coming up?
So I've got a few photo shoots and some filming to do for some clothing lines.
Okay.
We won't mention any names at the moment.
No, no,
I've
no.
actually done a couple. I did one a month ago, and I did one back in the summer actually, and that is still a lot of that is yet to be released. It's hard because you get everything that you've done, and I look at all the photos and the videos and I'm like, oh, I just want to show everyone, but I can't until they release it. So I've got
Yes.
hundreds of photos and videos on my phone that I can't even show anyone, and I'm like eager for them to release stuff.
Well,
um
at least you've got lots of content, so that's the main thing. At least you're ready
I
to
know,
go.
but I'm like, come on, can I post it yet? They're like, not yet. um so yeah, I've got another photo shoot and video to do. It was supposed to be December, but I think we pushed it back to January. So yeah, that's it at the minute, really. Even that, I mean, it all seems, for me, it seems to have all taken off at once. It's gone from 0 to 100, and people think, oh, it's great, you just get given stuff. It's so easy, and it's not. Trying to fit all this in around going out to do what you want to go out and do. You're going out to stalk for a reason or to fox shoot for a reason. You're not just posing with a gun for Instagram. You're going to do a job plus work and children. I said to my partner, we were going through the diary last night. I said, between now and Christmas, we have one day to go Christmas shopping, and that is it. I said, the diary is full.
But that's really, it's kind of good that people actually understand this because I think a lot of people look at social media and they go, oh, you're out and you're doing this and it looks so easy. But there's a whole other side to it, isn't there? That we've all actually got day jobs
Yeah.
and nobody wants to see your day job, but they want to see
Mm.
all the stuff you post online. And then when you post something that's there's stuff gets posted that's slightly out of season. So you just said you did a photo shoot in the summer. If you suddenly go and throw those photos up now, people will be like, oh, well, that's just content that
Oh
when was
no,
that
it'll be
made kind of.
fine because it was winter clothes in summer, which I can tell you was not fun doing. It was like a 25-degree heat in winter clothing, and it was not fun. I had to keep taking all the jumpers off, going, hang on, let me just breathe for a minute, and then we'll do another one. Um,
But yeah, it's just the greenery on the trees. It's like it'll be
yeah,
yeah, it doesn't quite work, does it? That's why I was talking to somebody and it's like, oh, but you take time to get your podcast done or photos done. It's like, well, I'd prefer to make sure everything's current. So it kind of, if you record something now, it needs to be up within a period of time. I try within like a week or 2 weeks to get them out, because otherwise you suddenly end up you talking about something and it's completely out of context or it doesn't work with what's going on. And I think some people slip on their social media feeds. They actually slip into posting stuff that they've just got a photo and they throw it up and it's like, well, hang on a minute, the leaves aren't on the trees yet and it's the middle of June kind of thing.
But it is a lot to keep up. You've got to find a balance, you don't get paid to do these things from, like being an ambassador. You get your perks of trying the equipment
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that, but you're not getting paid to do it. So it's like I say, it's trying to fit it all in. But just to make a video, there's so much time. I sit in bed at night like I've got to make this video, and I'm there, editing and things like that. But it's trying to, what goes into your content, even if it's your everyday to day things like going out stalking, it still takes time. There's still a lot of, and sometimes I feel the real pressure of it. I think, God, I haven't posted this week. But then I also think, but that's just life. You get it as well. We don't have time to always be posting every single day, keeping everyone up to date. It's just reality.
But you're lucky, you see, you've got a cameraman that can actually take the footage when you're trying to do all of this and trying to balance a phone, take a picture, video that, drive this, walk off a hill, but not
Yeah,
get
I don't
blown
know
off the
how
hill.
you do that.
It's got a bit crazy. It was lovely to actually have Alex, the hunter gatherer, up
Hmm.
to record his days, because to be followed by a cameraman, it was just
Yeah,
like,
what a bliss. Yeah.
I'm actually getting filmed. This is great.
Mm.
And it's
I know
it
my partner, bless him, he's like, oh, for God's sake, here we go again. Cameraman, here I come.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's one of those things. People, they do enjoy the content, and as long as it's good,
Mm.
and we see that because lots of people repost and say follow who to follow, etc., etc. So you're obviously doing the right things, and that's the way it is.
I hope so.
No, 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 definitely. Because you did a live with Alex for his Huntress Week, which seemed to go
Yeah, that was
pretty well.
great. Yeah, he was lovely. Like, I mean, that's the first time I'd ever really spoken to him or met him, and he was great. And this is it. It's so nice to be meeting new people. You talk about things coming up again, something I can't mention, but I had a phone call with someone tonight that I've kind of met. You say met through Instagram. You don't know them, do you? But you sort of chat to them and you feel like you know them. And I've got something planned coming up with her over the next few months. But just talking to her on the
Fantastic.
phone tonight, it's like, oh, it's so nice to actually speak to you and not just see each other on Instagram and message each other.
I think that makes a big difference. It's actually putting, like, I made a trip the other day. I was working up towards Inverness, and I actually decided there were two people that have travelled all the way up from Doncaster. They're stalking with another lad up there. So an extra half an hour onto the journey just to rock up, sit outside, knock on the door, and go, "Hi, we've spoken that much online and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
I was supposed to see you last time I was down in England." And actually to meet them face to face, it
yeah,
makes
it's
a huge
lovely.
difference because you actually get to tie things together. And at the end of the day, the shooting community really is actually really small in the UK.
Yeah.
So we are, yeah, you probably know more people than you actually think you know because you've met them. I suppose social media makes you think that you know a lot more people, but it's
Yeah,
actually when you do
definitely.
do meet them in the real world, it's hopefully it's a pleasant experience.
Yeah, it's nice to put a face, to it and actually get to know them. Like you say, you can feel like you know them, but you don't. But to actually get to, people say to me, well, how do you know him? I'm like, oh, we met on Instagram. They're like, what do you mean you met on Instagram? But you sort of just follow each other and you get chatting and you swap stories or recommendations, and then it just kind of goes from there, really.
Yeah, no, and I think that's key. And I, social media has two. It's kind of it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because you can meet a load of really nice people that are really helpful and want to give you the right information, but there's also a very dark side to it of jealousy and people that are
Mm.
just out there to sort of not almost, well, it is bullying, really, isn't it? And I don't.
Yeah.
It's actually an interesting one for you because as a male, I probably don't get it as much, but is that something that you've had on this platform?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's it's interesting how Facebook and Instagram can be so different. So I was very Instagram based to begin with, but people kept saying to me, "Well, you need to do Facebook as well." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a go." I find I prefer Instagram, and I always say I find there's less weirdos on Instagram, but I don't know why, because they're two very similar platforms that are very public and open to everyone. But on Facebook, I probably on Facebook, it's not even exaggerating. I think I get a minimum of 100 friends requests a day, and the messages, you can't even read them, and some of them are horrible. Some of them are just, I tend not to dwell on it and look at it as a bad, too much of a bad thing. But it's, oh, are you single? Do you want to meet up? And just, that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to show my journey and what I enjoy. And some of the messages you get, I can think, oh, really, for God's sake. But I've got to a point now where I just ignore, don't respond, block if I need to. I've had some really, really horrible, threatening messages before, and I used to really let it worry me and get me down. But now I just think, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm doing something that I enjoy. I like to, I'm doing it in the right way.
Yeah.
It's each to their own. I don't try and rub it in people's faces. I've got friends that are vegans and vegetarians, and I'm open to hearing their story. I don't shove it in their face what I do, and vice versa. I'm very open-minded. If you want to be a vegetarian, that's absolutely fine. So I think you've just got to take it with a pinch of salt, not let it get to you. It's hard it's even now when I post, I'm like, oh God, what are people going to say? Am I going to get any? Most of the time, all I get is, you've spelt that wrong. You've spelt that wrong. Because I'm like, you spell everything wrong.
I wish people would tell me that I've spelt it wrong. Obviously, as I said, being dyslexic, nobody ever mentions that. But
Yeah.
I find when I do post, I have two totally different way of posting things. Obviously, Facebook is very sensitive of what you post on there, because it does give you a completely different reaction. Whereas Instagram, you can post an educational feed of a deer, some grollock explaining about glands, and it goes down completely differently to if you posted that on Facebook. It's a bizarre
Which
one.
it is funny, isn't it? Because like I say, they're both pretty much the same. It's all open to the public and the same sort of people, but it just seems to be works completely differently.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not there's a different demographic though that actually use the
Mm,
Facebook platform, as it's been open for so long,
yeah.
compared to like the Instagram platform, which was more just for photos. And a lot of people, you speak to them and they go, "Oh, I don't use Instagram." And
Mm,
maybe that's a difference, because, well, it then leads us on to, yeah, you've been doing that, but it leads you on to all the deer stalking forums and stuff like that. Are you members of those? And do you get
mm.
involved in the heated debates and watching the whole thing unfold and go, I've typed this message, shall I post it? No, I better delete that.
Delete, delete, delete. Yeah, it's funny. I am on some of the forums and I get invited to a lot of forums. Again, I'm very open and honest in that, I will only join what I think I won't just accept everything everyone sends me. If I'm not interested in it, I'm not interested in it. But I will see the debates, and sometimes you see stuff that you think, oh, I don't really agree with that, but I just keep my opinion to myself. you know you don't know the circumstances around. People have said to me before, that wasn't a safe shot, and I'm like, but were you there? You're not seeing what I'm seeing. And actually taking a video off of a scope and then uploading it to Instagram, by the time it gets there, I mean, I'm not very good with technology, but the quality of it by the time it gets there, I say to people, it actually looks a lot better than that through the scope. Like, I'm telling you, the scope's really good. It looks really bad on there. But I think unless you're there in the moment, you can't really judge. You can look and think, oh, I don't know, but you don't know the circumstances around it. So I just think, just keep my opinion. I don't need to give my opinion. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
oh, I don't agree with that. That's what they want to do, and that's fine.
I think, yeah, if you shoot enough, then you understand exactly what's needed. I think when
Mm,
you start looking at these forums and it's the guy that goes out and maybe shoots one deer a year, who is suddenly an absolute expert and can tell you everything that you're doing wrong, it's like, well, okay, yeah, come and have some time on the hill with me, and we'll
mm,
we'll we'll, we'll test you and see how good you are, kind of thing. And people do
mm.
miss and things do go wrong, but that
We all miss.
is exactly. Yeah.
I had
It's
a particularly bad couple of days a few weekends ago, and that's why I zeroed my gun at work tonight, because I was sure there must have been something wrong with the gun. But it turns out it was absolutely bang on. So I can only put it down to operator error on that one.
and these things happen, and I think that as exactly that, when you're out shooting enough, it doesn't matter how good you are, things go wrong, and you can you will miss deer and you'll miss foxes, and you think, well, that was all perfect, what's gone on there?
Yeah.
Following a hind up, we were out on the hill, so the client took the shot, looked a good hit, but it was like, well, it's still moving, so I took another shot at it and thought I'd missed it, and
Mm,
it's still moving. So eventually you run off down the hill, leave the client up on the top, dive off down the
mm,
hill, probably got to within 100 yards of it, and headshot it. By the time I went to inspect it, I was like, well, that's the client's shot. Got it back to the
mhm.
larder. I did hit it bang on where I thought I'd hit it. And it's just things like that you go through all of this process, go, and it knocks you, you have to think it, go, well, did I miss that? How's my confidence? But actually, when you get it
Mm.
to the larder and you look at it and you go, oh, these things do happen.
Yeah, and I think, to begin with, I'd get very disheartened by it, and I'd miss this and miss that, and go, that's it. I'm not doing it now. Do you know what I mean? I used to get so frustrated by it and think, well, I can't do it. I'm no good at it. But we all have good days. We all have bad days. There's generally always a reason behind it, and it could be your finger placement on the trigger was different, or there's so many contributing factors, to it. It could be so many different things, but I think you've just got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off. But I think it's a good thing in a way, because you'll probably know yourself, like, your main goal is to take that shot and not wound the animal, to get a clean kill. And I think
Exactly.
that's why you can be so hard on yourself, because you're like, I can't get this wrong. I don't want to get this wrong. I want to get a clean shot, and it's done. You don't want to make the animal suffer. So I think that's why you put a lot of pressure on yourself as well, because you want it to go right.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's the key. If you can pick yourself up from it, crack on and go, had a bad day, tomorrow will be better. You just keep going. I think
Yeah.
if you give up, that's when it sets in, and you doubt yourself every time you go out, and eventually you give up doing what you want to do.
Clay shooting and shotgun shooting, I have, however, given up on.
Well, the problem is, I think that's one of those things that you're so used to shooting a rifle, to go and shoot a shotgun. You have to switch your brain off and go, I just keep moving the gun, and that's it.
Mm.
And it's probably one of those things that if you get watched or you've had somebody training you to shoot a shotgun, I guarantee you they'll go, your rifle shooting it. You probably stop at the target every
Mm.
time and it's gone behind.
Well, I struggle as well, because I'm right-handed, but I'm left eye dominant.
Right.
So with a rifle, I've learnt to shoot right and left with my rifle
Okay.
quite easily. So whichever direction it goes in, I can switch.
Oh,
um,
fantastic.
but
Right.
I am more accurate with my left eye. For me, a shotgun left-handed, I can do it, and then I go to break the barrel, and I'm like, hang on, which way do my feet go, and which way? It's not natural. With a rifle, you just sort of have to reload, job done. But breaking the barrel, and oh, hang on, which pocket am I cut? I don't know. It just doesn't work in my brain, so I can only shoot shotguns right-handed. I have tried left, and maybe if I persisted more, it would work.
So you're
Um,
going to have to get yourself one of those funky looking stocks. Have you ever seen the crossover stock?
I've got, so my shotgun now, it's not a complete crossover, but everyone says to me I've got a wonky gun. They look at my gun and go, Jesus Christ, that's wonky. Um, I say it still doesn't work for me. Again, we say you've got to dust yourself up and carry on, but I think I have lost a lot of confidence in shotgun shooting. Um, the other week my partner says to me, oh, we've been invited to a pheasant day. Do you want to do it? And I said, that's a lot of money for me to miss all the birds. I'll just come with the dog and I'll pick up behind you. Because but I think, I enjoying the rifle shooting more. I can sort of take it or leave it with the shotguns now. I actually enjoy more going out with a dog, like picking up behind him. I had such a good day working my dog,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I didn't have to be behind the gun. I still had a fantastic day.
And that's what it all boils down to. At the end, I think on a day on the pheasants and stuff like that, we were out on a rough shoot the other day, and it's like didn't I think I shot 2 cartridges, but it was the still going out just for a laugh, having a bit of fun, having the banter, everything
Yeah,
that goes with it. That's the day out, isn't it, realistically?
yeah,
And I think that if you enjoy just being there, working the dog, that can be just as
yeah.
much fun as actually pulling the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I started, was with the dogs, and you put so much effort into training them. You want to put your hard work to use and hope that
Yeah.
it goes right.
And you're not standing there blowing the whistle and calling the dog, and the dog's 3 fields away, and it's like, oh no, that's my dog. And
I was actually that I took her out the week before for her first ever day, and she was so well behaved, so good. So I was like, amazing. I'll take her again on this day. And it was all being filmed for a YouTube channel. Wow, she obviously knew, because that was it. Straight off to the duck pond, and I was like, I can't even. I'm being recorded, so I'm just like, peep, peep, peep. Please come back. Thinking, I just want to scream at you.
yeah, I'm just going to shout at my dog, get it out.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. You can't do that because you've got to look right on TV. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the same with shooting. It doesn't always go to plan. Sometimes it does. They're animals at the end of the day. They're like us. They have good days and they have bad days.
Exactly, absolutely. Anyway, I think we've probably covered everything, unless there's any questions you've got that you want to fire, or anybody's asked you anything or anything like that that you want to talk about.
I don't think so. I think we've pretty much covered it all.
I think we have. No, it's sometimes people have like Richie got a load of questions sent to him that he wanted to talk about and stuff like that. But no,
Mm.
that's cool. I think we'll draw it to a close there. So
Yeah, it's
thank
been
you ever so
lovely.
much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. That's all right.
Thank you for
That's no
having me.
problem
It's
at
been
all.
first ever podcast.
Well, there you go. You can and make sure you share it and tell everybody to listen to the podcast.
I will. Thank you very much.
No worries at all. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. I am trying to get one more podcast out just before the festive period starts, give you all something to listen to. And hopefully into the new year, we've got a load of new guests lined up. So we will carry on doing what we're doing. But again, if there's anybody that's interested in suggesting somebody I should get on the show, or something they want me to talk about, I've had a few suggestions already, so they will be podcasts that will be produced. Then drop us a message either via the socials or an email or any other method you want, and we'll try and get it recorded for you. Anyway, have a good one.